This is the white Tele from that video the other day comparing the different Telecaster pickups. This one's got the Mojotones, and this one sounded really, really bright. So we're going to see what we can do about that. I looked at this before and I ordered some parts, which I'll get to, because they had set screws on this knurled shaft, which is not my favorite. And this one, I believe, is a long bushing, which they made work, but we're going to change out not just the style of pots, but the value and the tapers as well. And rewire this a little bit more in line with the traditional Tele sound. Now, the stock wiring job is not bad, though it had a really nasty bright cap treble bleed installed. I removed that before. Anyway, let me take this apart, and we'll take everything out and start from scratch except for the switch. All right, so the old pots are out, and all the old wires are out except for this one going to the switch, and I left that wiring there. And I've brought this to the switch and have a lot less excess than they had before. I've got the wire coming through and hooked over before soldering. Let me solder that on camera. Notice I brought the iron to the metal, both pieces of metal, and then I applied the solder to the already heated metal. I didn't just put some solder on my iron and then paint it on there. You can see here I've got a bus wire. This is 18 gauge going from pot to pot. So from this part of the shell through the negative lug on this volume pot to this part of the shell. So that gives me 3 good solid grounds. If one of these pots becomes a little bit loose, it's unlikely to rotate because of this wire. It's a redundant ground, but doesn't cause a loop because this is just for shielding in this application. And it gives me something even better than a volume pot to solder all the ground wires to, but we'll get there next. I've decided to reuse the cap in the tone circuit that was already there. It's a RS Guitar Works paper and oil cap. It's pretty. It's purple. More importantly, it's 47 nanofarad. It's only the capacitance that really matters, as long as the lead's not flimsy. The 600 volt cap's way overkill as far as voltage goes, but the relatively strong lead is nice. So as you can see, it's free floating right now, and I've got it hooked over each lug before soldering. I'm going to solder this one, but I'm going to leave this one unsoldered until I connect the output jack there as well. And you can see here, I have bent over and angled this lug so it is already pressed up against this pot casing right here. I don't need to do anything crazy to it. I could also have just brought this over to this in a loop, or brought this around in a loop, but I forgot, so I'm not going to do that. And that's all it takes. For those who ask, I like to use a small chisel tip for most of this stuff, and I've got the soldering station set to 700 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I have all the positive wires ready to be soldered. They're all hooked around. You can see that. I think you can just see that one. I need to get a different lens for a wider depth of field for certain shots. And the paper towel is not a very lovely thing here, but it protects the finish of the guitar from any solder spatter. Anyway, let me solder those 3 positives, and I'll do the negatives. And now I have all the black ground wires connected, but I have them connected to the bus wire rather than all attached to one of the pot cases, just because it heats the pot cases up less. I like to do it as few times as possible. So now it's time for me to put this back in place, put on the knobs and make sure it works, and then play around with some pickup heights. Okay, let's make sure it's working. So neck pickup. Bridge pickup. And both. All right, let's put the knobs on. Let's turn the volume all the way up, unplug it from the amp, move this out of the way. Personally, I like to set Tele knobs so the set screw is facing forward when it's all the way up. That way you can see it as it turns down, so you have a quick visual reference just in case you forget where things are. And I like to space it out from the control plate by a little bit. This 0.88 millimeter pick does a pretty good job of that. It's tricky to do. I get it started since it's all the way out. It's a bit tricky to do with the camera where it is. The reason I use the pick is the bottom of these machined knobs that you find on Telecasters are never completely level. So if you have it down against the pick guard, one part of it will always, not the pick guard, the control plate, one part of the knob will always be rubbing. This gets it up just enough that there's no rubbing, no friction. Thanks for watching.